everybody that has this job or they go on, whether it be YouTube, the radio, or the television set, and, predict, okay, these are all the teams that are going to make the playoffs, and these are, who the wild card teams are going to be. This is going to be the conference championship games and the Super Bowl winner. Everybody obviously does that prior to the season starting, but just kind of based on our schedule. We didn't begin our show till after week 1 anyway. There's been plenty of stuff to talk about with the Cincinnati Bengals and, of course, Joe Burrow here. But I thought today would be a good day to break down who exactly my playoff teams are in the AFC and the NFC, and my predictions there as well. Now, I made these, again, mentioned this at the top of the show. We're just operating off the honor system here. I had this all written down prior to week 1 of the National Football League season, and I have not adjusted based off what we've seen in week 2. There are some things that look like really good predictions. There are some that look like really bad predictions, and we'll break it down here on today's show. Let's start with the AFC. At the number 1 overall seed, I have the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen. In a lot of ways, it feels like their year. Allen, he's coming off, is an MVP season last year, his best year in the NFL. Another year in Buffalo as the guy. He's got a weak division in which he's operating with, right? It's not like he's got Belichick in New England still there causing issues. Yeah, I think Vrabel's going to do a fine job of building that organization. Miami's obviously a dumpster fire, and the Jets probably always will be a dumpster fire. So he has the beneficiary of playing in a weak division, clearly the best quarterback in that division, and I would argue has the best head coach right now. I think Vrabel could probably unseat McDermott, but the Bills are in a really good spot. Bills obviously have looked really good the first 2 weeks. Defensive question marks, no doubt, and what they did against Buffalo, clean that up against the Jets, obviously a lesser opponent. But I view Buffalo as a team that's going to win a ton of football games. They're going to win their division, no problem. Wouldn't be surprised if they went 6-0 in their division, to be completely honest with you. And I've got them penciled in as the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. The 2 seed I have is the Baltimore Ravens, winning the AFC North. Again, these first 2 weeks, I made these before the NFL season began, but Lamar Jackson looks like he's right back to possibly winning another MVP. He looks terrific, looks great from within the pocket. You have question marks from Baltimore defensively. They played better, obviously, against Cleveland, who's one of the worst teams in the NFL, so not really much you can take from that. But the Baltimore Ravens, as long as Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson is there and Lamar Jackson is upright and healthy, they're going to win a ton of games. But how they're evaluated, similar to how Buffalo is going to be evaluated here throughout the course of the next few years, is how they perform in the postseason and how they perform more specifically than that against the Kansas City Chiefs in the postseason as well. Lots of good pieces on Baltimore. They're going to be an issue for the Cincinnati Bengals. They're going to be an issue for everybody they face this year. Some concern about the blowing leads late. A lot of it is they have a lot of leads, but there is cause for concern there, especially with the team that hasn't been able to get over the hump in the postseason. There's some concern for that, but I think Baltimore wins the North now with no Joe Burrow, wins the North with no problem probably, and ultimately secures that number 2 overall seat. I've got the Chargers winning the AFC West. Year 2 of Harbaugh, have them at the 3 seed. Year 2 of Harbaugh, Herbert through a couple of games. Again, I'm going to say this a million times, and you're probably like, Stone, we get it, stop. But before the NFL season, these are my predictions. Chargers, defensively, they're really good. They draft really well. They develop really well. They're so tough. They need to run the football a little bit better, which I think Harbaugh will get that figured out. Hampton threw a couple of games. Thought he was really going to burst on the scene and look like a really solid running back. He's definitely underperformed through 2 games. I think Harbaugh will get that figured out. Also, you got Najee Harris in that backfield for Los Angeles as well. No Rashawn Slater is big. Obviously, one of their bookend tackles, missing him is a problem, but Joe Alt certainly has done a terrific job, and guys that have filled in along the offensive line. Mekhi Becton, obviously, now there. He was with Philly last year and helped them win a world championship. Herbert, I always viewed him as, one of the top quarterbacks in this league. He's had the turmoil and the turnover with head coaches. He had it even at Oregon, and now he's had it here with the Chargers now on his 3rd head coach. But Harbaugh clearly is the right guy to be leading this football team. And, the toughness, the discipline, the arm strength, the ability to escape, extend plays, the legs. I mean, Herbert checks all the boxes. Now he finally has a good coach, and the organization now feels stable. And, I think they take over that spot for this year, not necessarily for the foreseeable future, but I think they best Kansas City here this year and win the division, had them at the 3 seed. And this was the one that I probably would change now, but I'm not going to. I've got the Houston Texans winning the South. I thought C.J. Stroud was going to take a step in the right direction after taking a step in the wrong direction last year in year 2. The offensive line was dreadful last year, and it's seemingly just as bad, maybe even worse this year. Did not expect that to be the case. Sometimes you have that, though, with defensive head coaches. They really struggle to figure out the offensive line. DeMeco Ryans does a great job. He's a great leader. He's got a great culture, but the offensive line has not been good these past 2 years for Houston. We'll see if they can rebound from that. They can't run the football whatsoever, and they really can't help C.J. Stroud out much. We'll see if they get that turned around. Indianapolis, obviously, has been the surprise of the NFL through 2 weeks this point, but before the season, I had Houston being that 4 seed and winning the South. All right, 3 playoff teams here in the AFC at the 5 seed. Kansas City. Even after this 0-2 starts, I don't feel any worse about this prediction, to be completely honest with you. I think Kansas City, with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, they're always going to be a playoff team. That's just kind of the reality. You can put up a bunch of garbage men out there probably along the rest of their team or the rest of their offense, and Mahomes will find a way to get it done and advance to the postseason. They're not going to win as many games this year as they're used to doing, obviously, but they're going to make the playoffs, and they're still going to be a threat. Wouldn't be surprised if they won a playoff game or 2. Wouldn't be surprised at all if they even made a couple of upsets and ended up in the Super Bowl. That's just kind of how it goes with Kansas City. Cincinnati is who I have as the 6th seed in these playoffs, and obviously this was with the anticipation that Joe Burrow would be the guy. Not going to back off it yet, especially if Burrow has a chance to come back. But Bengals at 6. Defense is taking a step in the right direction. They got skill guys. They got a head coach that I believe in. And really the thing for them was just get off to a fast start. Obviously, if Joe Burrow was out there, I don't think anybody would – I think they'd be a lock for the playoffs, to be completely honest with you, after a 2-0 start. Burrow no longer there, but Browning has a 2-0 record to work with and has everybody else out there, right? All the skill guys out there with him, and we'll see. But I had the Bengals being a wild card team, and also had the Steelers being a wild card team as well. It was my prediction that there would be 3 teams in the AFC that ultimately made the postseason. And that's what I'm sticking with here. I do have reservations as far as the offensive line of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mike Tomlin has not been able to figure out the offensive line. Kind of alluded to it with DeMeco Ryans of Houston, right? But defensive coaches, they really struggle with the offensive line. Tomlin's great culture guy. His teams always play hard. They're really tough. They're really physical. He always has a winning record. He always makes the playoffs. But his offensive line's been bad for a long time. And with a guy that's an old man out there playing quarterback, that's an issue. I've got my reservations as far as Aaron Rodgers making it through the entirety of a season here in 2025, through a couple of games. Obviously still have that 1 win, but he's been hit way too many times. And that's not something he's going to be able to withstand throughout the entirety of an NFL season if that doesn't get cleaned up. But again, before the year, had Pittsburgh getting in at that 7 seed. So that means the Bills get the bye, and the matchups based on these seedings would be this: Texans, Chiefs, Bengals, Chargers, Steelers, and Ravens. Had the Chiefs taking down the Texans on the road, had the Bengals taking down the Chargers on the road, and had the Ravens taking down the Steelers at home. All of those teams advancing to the divisional round. Just any situation where the Chiefs don't make the playoffs and don't win a playoff game is going to surprise me. Now, we'll see. I could be back here on Monday morning and say, I'm changing my mind, because if they lose to the Giants, my mind very well could change. But I don't anticipate them having any issues on Sunday night on the road. I think they win big on Sunday and get their season right back on the right track. Then the divisional round would be Bills and Bengals, Chiefs and Ravens as your final 4 teams. I had the Bengals going to Buffalo and picking up a victory, and also had the Baltimore Ravens finally getting over the hump and beating the Kansas City Chiefs. They just have better talent. They have better talent on the football field. They've obviously struggled against Kansas City in the playoffs, had opportunities even at home to beat them. I think they get over the hump this year. And then I had Bengals, Ravens. Bengals going on the road and beating Baltimore as a wild card team. 3 straight road wins for the Bengals. Call me a homer. That's fine. Again, this was before the year with Joe Burrow. That's what I had. That was my prediction. The Bengals get to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. That was my prediction. With, obviously I'm a Cincinnati guy. Obviously some people are laughing, rolling their eyes at that. That's totally fine. But with Joe Burrow coming back and the weaponry coming back, it was my belief that Cincinnati would hoist the Lombardi Trophy at the end end of the year. So that's the AFC side. Let's venture over to the NFC side. Packers, 1 seed. They've been 1 on my power rankings now. They're really, really good. There's a lot of youth. That's fine. I think that's probably a good thing. To be honest with you, more of a good thing than a bad thing. Great head coach, great defensive coordinator, great play caller, obviously, in the floor, great quarterback in Jordan Love, great defense. Do they have that wide receiver 1? Nope, but they have lots of capable targets. Great tight end, Tucker Kraft. Offensive line, solid there as well. Zach Tom, obviously, banged up. They need him to come back, but Packers are clearly, to me, the best team in the National Football League. I had them even before this year started as the 1 seed. And having that bye for the first round of the playoffs. 2 seed, I have the defending world champion Philadelphia Eagles. A lot of people came back, and Howie Roseman did a tremendous job building his roster as he typically does. Jalen Hurts remains one of the most underrated, or probably the most underrated quarterback in the National Football League, even after winning the Super Bowl this past year. Hurts, great player, great quarterback. Yeah, they haven't had to lean on him at all, as they've really just been running. Hurts hasn't really done much in the pass game. If they're going to get back to a Super Bowl, and if they're going to win a ton of games and have success in the postseason, he's going to have to throw the ball at some point. But with Barkley, that offensive line, that's what they're built on, that Philadelphia grit, that toughness. I have them winning the East, no problems whatsoever, securing the 2 seed. 3 seed, I have the Los Angeles Rams. Thought about, moving off this after the back stuff with Stafford, but when he's out there and he's healthy, he's so good. He is so good, even at his age. If you look at some of the highlights or the tape from the Rams, even these first 2 games of this year, some of the throws that he's already made this year are just stupid throws from Matthew Stafford. Great head coach in McVay. Second best head coach, the best head coach not named Andy Reid. Great defense, youth all over the place. They can cover, they can rush the passer. They're disciplined. They're always going to be one of the least penalized teams. Have had some bad luck with injuries in the past, but if they can stay healthy, I think they're going to win that division. Have them as the 3 seed. Tampa Bay, have them at that 4 seed. I think they're clearly the best team in the South. And, can Atlanta, fight with them a little bit? Yeah, maybe, sure. But I think Tampa Bay is going to win that division, and you'll see them probably have 10, 11 wins this year with Baker Mayfield if he can stay healthy. And they're kind of like that dark horse team for me that you could blink and perhaps they're in the Super Bowl, and many people going in this year didn't expect that. That's not what I have predicted, but have them winning the division being that 4 seed. All right, 3 wild cards in the NFC. 6th spot, have the San Francisco 49ers. I was looking for them to kind of get back to that dominant form that you saw them a couple of years ago. Obviously, last year, kind of a down year for Shanahan and company. Purdy, I have a lot of belief in. We'll see when he comes back, but Mac Jones is a guy I have a lot of belief in there as well. That defense has been fixed with Robert Saleh coming back. Offensive line is my biggest concern for them. If they can protect Brock Purdy and or Mac Jones, that's going to be, what could potentially hold them back. That offensive line for years has been awesome, but it's hard to withstand great offensive lines, and San Francisco's this year certainly not nearly as good as it used to be, but I have them being second place in the West, getting that top wild card spot. I had them as the 6th wild card spot. I skipped over the 5th wild card spot. That is the Detroit Lions. I said even after their loss to Green Bay, the shift in coordinators, Dan Campbell, all right, he'll be all right. He'll be just fine. We'll see exactly how his coordinator hires pan out, but he's going to put them in a fine spot. And if Jared Goff can be protected, and if that offensive line can keep him upright, he's good enough, he's talented enough, he's got the skill guys around him that he's going to make the playoffs. That's just the reality of the situation. Packers win that division, but the Lions get in as a wild card. And at that 7 spot, this one I was thinking could go multiple different ways. Have the Washington Commanders there at that spot with Jaden Daniels. Obviously, sensational rookie year, probably the best rookie year we have ever seen. They get to the conference championship last year as a rookie. The Terry McLaurin stuff, the fact that went on for as long as it did this offseason, not good, not ideal, should have happened way earlier, just kind of a head-scratcher there as it relates to that. Defensively, you have some question marks, but Dan Quinn's always been able to figure out his defenses. I think they're competent. They don't compete with Philadelphia to win that division, but they edge out Dallas. They edge out, obviously, the Giants, and I think they're in a spot where they are in the playoffs and get that last playoff spot in the NFC. All right, so the Packers get the bye as the 1 seed here. And let's break down Wild Card Weekend. Lions go to Tampa Bay, play the Buccaneers. I've got the Buccaneers winning that game. I think Baker, if he's healthy, is going to win a playoff game this year. That's just kind of how I feel. 49ers at Rams, a matchup that obviously the Rams have been dominated in, but they do have that, win in the postseason over San Francisco, where obviously they went on to beat Cincinnati in the Super Bowl. But regular season-wise, Shanahan owns that matchup. I think it changes again here in the postseason. I think the Rams beat the Niners at home in Los Angeles. Probably going to be more Niners fans at that game if that game actually does transpire. But I like the Rams to win that game. Commanders, Eagles, a battle in the wild card round in the NFC East. I think Philadelphia wins that. Kind of similar to, honestly, what you saw in the conference championship game last year. Too tough, too physical, too much Saquon Barkley, too much offensive line. Eagles win that game. Buccaneers, Packers. I think Baker's run ends there, kind of just runs into a buzzsaw there with Green Bay. I'm really high on Green Bay. I'm going to continue to be high on Green Bay. I think they win that matchup. Rams, Eagles, a rematch of last year's playoff game. This time also would be in Philadelphia based on how I have the seeding here. I think Los Angeles actually can go into Philadelphia and win. People don't even talk about the fact they were literally a play away from winning that game last year. And who knows? They might win the Super Bowl again last year if they make one or two more plays in that play in the game in the snow against Philadelphia. I think they go to Philly. Tough place to play, especially in January, and get a victory there in that game and advance to the conference title game where they have to go to Lambeau and play the Green Bay Packers. And I have Green Bay winning that football game and advancing to the Super Bowl before losing to the Cincinnati Bengals. Those are my playoff predictions. Again, before the season, just when we started our show, wasn't able to do it before the NFL got underway, but those are my predictions right now. Not going to fully back off yet, but obviously I don't feel good at all about Cincinnati winning the Super Bowl without Joe Burrow. If Browning can keep him afloat and Burrow's back and you see a game or two and he's, picking up, at a good spot, right? Maybe not playing his best football, but it's like, okay, he can move around. Then we're back on, right? Because if Joe Burrow's out in the postseason, I'm betting on him 10 out of 10 times. Call me a homer, that's just fine. But before the year, those are my predictions. Cincinnati in the Super Bowl over Green Bay. Broke down all those playoff teams too as well. We'll have a college football one. Again, season started. We'll do that early next week, breaking down my college football playoff teams and predictions. And we'll have fun tracking that as the season progresses.